Okay, I'm a black therapist. I'm a rare breed. I think I know there's 200 of us.
Is that it?
200 that I know personally. But I just wanted to say a little bit about how the journey that I made to my emancipation, really, and then to talk specifically about the black-white divide and specifically about training, psychotherapy training, and also maybe say a little bit about, emotion, what's happening with emotion. So like you, I'm sure when I grew up, it was beatings, and you had to do what you were told. But what I couldn't understand at that time was why the beatings were happening. What I was told was, I need to behave myself, I need to do this. And at one point I can remember there were literally cuts on my back, and my mum was nursing those cuts. So that's kind of the level it went to. So the consequence of that was that, I went through the world with my head down, not getting into trouble, being scared, being frightened, and that was my experience. And then I think I had another experience. I grew up in London. It was a multicultural place. We went to the Lake District. We went for a Lake District. We was about 10 or 12 or whatever it was, and that was my first taste of racism. And it wasn't the big time racism that my boy is talking about there. It was that subtle type of racism, that sort of, you don't quite know what's going on. Something's happening, but you're not quite sure what it is. You know it's something to do with you. That much you're sure of, because when you walk in, people are just different. And then I worked in the music industry. I was as a sound engineer. I did that for about 15 years. I had a good time. I was quite successful. But towards the end of that career, I just thought, why isn't my life, I'm still kind of not, I don't even feel human, I feel kind of like a half a human or even a quarter. But at that point, I wasn't kind of thinking like that. I was just thinking, I'm just not right. So I kind of quit that. And had a bit of money, so I did some psychotherapy. This was like standard psychotherapy wasn't on the NHS, it's something I paid for myself. My first therapist was a white therapist. I went to a group. I spent years and years and years, and the first group I went to, it was all white people mostly. It was just me, there's another Asian woman there, and I was just like, they're crying, they're expressing themselves, what's going on here? I was just like, my mind was blown, It's like for two years I was just sitting there going, what the hell is going on here? This is like the telly. This doesn't really happen in real life. So I sort of came to realize that actually my life was, in terms of human ability and the range of human consciousness, I was kind of down there. So I had to sort of do some work. Then I did a training as a psychotherapist. And you're there. Why are you there? Well, you're there to dig into the human psyche. That's why you're there. You're there to kind of uncover the unconscious. You're there to meet the hurt and engage with it. And all the people around me were very clever. They could speak, they can talk, they had their voice. And then as soon as I mentioned race, my experience of race, it was like tumbleweeds. That was the experience. So again, I'm kind of thinking, what's going on? Again, head down, just finished my course, got out of Dodge, you know what I mean? And then I was thinking about creating this network, the Black, African and Asian Therapy Network. It started off just as a database online because people were asking me, well, do I know of a black counselor? At that point, I was the only black man I knew and one other person who was my therapist, the other side in Acton. So I started this network. I thought I might get 20, 30, 40, 50 maybe therapists join. We can talk and we can find out what's going on. The list grew, got 100, 200, 300, 400, 1,200 people now are part of the network. And they're across the UK. All black and Asian psychotherapists. Now, the reason why we meet now I have a kind of a very dysfunctional, strange relationship with the psychotherapy profession. Like psychotherapy itself, I can see is good, but the culture of psychotherapy is what I have a big problem. And at the moment, from what I can observe, and certainly reading Joy's book and just my own personal experience and talking to students and talking to people who have done training, is that the hurt that we have, the particular type of hurt we have, it just can't be held by the psychotherapy profession. They can't hold it. They can't hold it. So I can go there and I can do all kinds of work, but the biggest part of me, which is my black identity, I can't deal with it. I'm not saying that's not a universal thing, but mostly that's how it is. So I've got a bit, in terms of the motion, should the NHS provide the therapy? I'm thinking, well, I don't know about that. I think they should pay for something. I think they should pay for something that actually would benefit us. Because I think one of the essential ingredients, I think, of moving through something, liberating yourself, is actually understanding about slavery, understanding about that experience. That's point one. Point two is the construct, the race construct that was organized and developed post-slavery, which is where we're living, which has kind of just kept that slave experience intact. So the people who gained through slavery are still gaining through slavery. It's not the same, but it's still the same. And we have microaggressions, we have all kinds of stuff to deal with in terms of economics and where we live. So there's no doubt about the post-traumatic slave syndrome. That's a given to me. And I think the NHS should pay, but I think they should pay in a particular kind of way with therapies that we create and therapies that we organize and therapies that we deliver. And my hope is that the Black and Asian Therapists Network anyway, the Black African Asian Therapy Network, can be part of that. And I have some really powerful experiences in those groups. We meet and I am just met. And every part of me is met there. And in terms of my own development, that is where I get my juice, you know what I mean? And I can spend time there and I can then come out into the world and hold my head up, hold my head up. So so I do agree with the motion, but it needs to be delivered in a particular way in the way that we want it, we need it. Thank you.